The darkness had always belonged to them. For generations, Vietnamese fighters had moved through the night like shadows, using the cover of blackness to transport supplies, launch attacks, and vanish before dawn. The French had learned this the hard way at Dien Bien Phu in 1954. The Americans would face the same reality when they arrived in 1965. But by 1967, something had changed in the jungles and rice paddies of South Vietnam. The night no longer offered sanctuary. American soldiers could suddenly see through darkness itself, and the advantage that had sustained Vietnamese fighters for decades was about to evaporate. Staff Sergeant Michael Irish O'Malley of the 199th Light Infantry Brigade first encountered the new technology on a sweltering July evening at Long Bin Post, 20 miles northeast of Saigon. The weapon in his hands weighed nearly 6 pounds, more than his M16 rifle, and looked like something from a science fiction movie. The N/PVS-2 Starlight scope had arrived in Vietnam just months earlier, and O'Malley was among the first American soldiers to peer through its green-tinted lens into a world that had been invisible since the beginning of warfare itself. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, O'Malley whispered as he adjusted the eyepiece. Through the scope's 4 times magnification, the jungle tree line 300 meters away appeared as clearly as if illuminated by floodlights. Every leaf, every shadow, every potential hiding spot stood revealed in an eerie green glow. For the first time in his 2 tours of duty, O'Malley could see what had been hunting his men in the darkness. The technology that would revolutionize night combat had begun its journey not in the steaming jungles of Southeast Asia, but in the quiet industrial city of Rochester, New York, where the Wollensak Optical Company had been crafting precision lenses since 1899. Founded by German immigrant brothers Andrew and John Wollensak, the company had built its reputation on camera shutters and movie camera lenses. But by 1966, Wollensak's engineers were working on something far more consequential than Hollywood equipment. In a classified facility on Hudson Avenue, optical engineer Dr. Catherine Brennan led a team of 12 specialists in developing what the U.S. Army Electronics Command had designated the Stano Project: surveillance, target acquisition, and night observation. The project's goal was ambitious: create a passive night vision device that could amplify existing starlight and moonlight by 1,000 times, allowing soldiers to see clearly in conditions that had previously rendered them blind. "We weren't just building a scope," Brennan recalled in a 1992 interview, decades after the project's declassification. "We were attempting to give human beings the ability to see like nocturnal predators." The challenge wasn't just technical, it was biological. The human eye can detect a single photon under laboratory conditions, but in practical terms, we needed to capture and amplify light that barely existed. The heart of Brennan's system was the S20 photocathode, a revolutionary component that could convert individual photons into electrons. These electrons would then cascade through an image intensifier tube, creating a visible green image on a phosphor screen. Unlike the infrared systems used during World War II, which required external light sources that could betray a soldier's position, the Starlight scope was completely passive. It emitted no detectable radiation, making its user invisible to enemy counter-surveillance while granting them supernatural vision. The first working prototypes weighed nearly 8 pounds and required external battery packs that soldiers carried like radio gear. The optics were crude, producing images that bloomed and faded unpredictably when exposed to bright light sources. But even these early versions represented a quantum leap in night fighting capability. When field-tested at Fort Benning, Georgia, in late 1966, soldiers could identify human targets at ranges exceeding 400 meters under conditions of starlight alone. Colonel James "Iron Mike" Patterson, commanding officer of the 3rd Battalion, 7th Infantry Regiment, received his first starlight scopes in March 1967 as his unit prepared for deployment to Vietnam. Patterson, a veteran of the Korean War who had witnessed the devastating effectiveness of Chinese night attacks, immediately understood the scope's potential to transform battlefield tactics. "For 15 years, we've been fighting defensive wars at night," Patterson explained to his battalion commanders during a pre-deployment briefing. "The enemy moved in darkness, hit us before dawn, and vanished. Now we're going to turn the tables. With these scopes, night becomes our ally." The 3rd Battalion, 7th Infantry arrived at Long Binh on March 25, 1967, carrying 12 and/PVS-2 Starlight scopes in specially sealed aluminum transit cases. Each scope was assigned to a designated operator who had completed 40 hours of specialized training in night vision tactics, maintenance, and security protocols. The devices were classified as top secret, requiring signed custody receipts and constant accountability to prevent capture by enemy forces. Private First Class Danny "Ghost" Kowalski became the primary scope operator for Bravo Company, 3rd Battalion. A former deer hunter from Michigan's Upper Peninsula, Kowalski possessed the patience and steady hands that made him ideal for precision night observation. During his first week in country, Kowalski discovered that operating the Starlight scope required skills far beyond basic marksmanship. The scope had a mind of its own, Kowalski wrote in a letter to his father dated April 15, 1967. You couldn't just look through it like a regular rifle scope. The image would bloom out if you moved too fast or if there was too much ambient light. You had to learn to breathe with it, to become part of the machine. But when everything worked right, you could see Charlie moving through the jungle like he was walking in broad daylight. The operational effectiveness of the Starlight scope became apparent during its first major engagement on July 10, 1967, when Bravo Company, 3rd Battalion, 7th Infantry encountered a reinforced North Vietnamese Army platoon near the village of Tan Nguyen, 25 miles northeast of Saigon. The engagement would become a case study in how night vision technology could shift the balance of nocturnal warfare. The North Vietnamese forces, approximately 40 soldiers armed with AK-47 rifles and RPG-7 rocket-propelled grenades, had established an ambush position along a known American patrol route. Intelligence reports suggested they were part of the regular NVA forces operating out of Cambodia, experienced fighters who had perfected the art of night ambush tactics against South Vietnamese and American units. At 2200 hours on July 9, Kowalski detected the enemy force through his Starlight scope as they moved into position. Through the scope's green-tinted optics, he could observe individual soldiers digging spider holes, positioning automatic weapons, and establishing fields of fire. For nearly 6 hours, Kowalski maintained silent observation, radioing periodic updates to Lieutenant Robert Chen, Bravo Company's forward observer. I could see them setting up their ambush like it was a training exercise, Chen reported in his after-action review. Kowalski was calling out grid coordinates, counting personnel, identifying weapons systems. We knew exactly where every enemy soldier was positioned before they fired their first shot. When the North Vietnamese opened fire at 0430 hours on July 10, Bravo Company was ready. Instead of stumbling into a deadly ambush, American forces immediately returned accurate fire on predetermined targets. The Starlight scopes allowed designated marksmen to engage enemy positions with precision that would have been impossible in complete darkness. Sergeant First Class Luis "Hawk" Rodriguez, armed with an M14 rifle and N/PVS-2 scope, eliminated the enemy machine gun position with his first shot. The green phosphor image clearly showed the muzzle flash location, allowing Rodriguez to place a 7.62 NATO round precisely on target at a range of 230 meters. It was like hunting with a spotlight, Rodriguez recalled 40 years later during a veterans reunion. I could see the machine gunner's face when he pulled the trigger. I could see the brass casings flying from his weapon. The scope didn't just give us night vision, it gave us complete situational awareness. The engagement lasted 47 minutes and resulted in 18 confirmed enemy casualties with no American fatalities. 3 U.S. soldiers were wounded by shrapnel from RPG explosions, but the early warning provided by the Starlight scope prevented the devastating casualties typically associated with successful ambush attacks. The tactical success at Tan Nguyen represented more than a single engagement victory. It demonstrated that American forces could now seize the initiative during nighttime operations, transforming from reactive defenders to proactive hunters. Word of the engagement spread rapidly through American units throughout 3 Corps tactical zone, and requests for Starlight scopes increased exponentially. Back in Rochester, New York, the Wollensack Optical Company struggled to meet the sudden surge in military demand. The company's civilian operations, including camera lens production for Kodak and other photography companies, were pushed aside as engineers focused exclusively on military contracts. By August 1967, Woollensack had expanded its night vision production facility to include 3 complete assembly lines operating 24 hours per day. Dr. Brennan's team worked frantically to address the technical problems that field reports from Vietnam had identified. The scope's weight remained a significant issue, with many soldiers reporting that the 6-pound device severely affected weapon handling during rapid movement. Battery life in the tropical humidity of Southeast Asia proved shorter than laboratory testing had predicted, sometimes failing after only 4 hours of continuous operation. The most challenging problem was the scope's sensitivity to bright light sources. Image intensifier tubes could be permanently damaged by exposure to artificial illumination, vehicle headlights, or even bright moonlight under certain atmospheric conditions. Several scopes had already been destroyed when Viet Cong forces deliberately used flares and searchlights to overload the delicate photocathode systems. We were pushing the boundaries of what was technically possible with 1967 technology, Brennan explained. The image intensifier tubes were hand-assembled components with hundreds of individual parts. Every tube was essentially a prototype, built by technicians who understood that a single mistake could render the entire system useless. The manufacturing process for the S-20 photocathode required clean room conditions that rivaled those used for space program components. Gallium arsenide crystals were grown in specialized furnaces, then carefully deposited onto optical-quality glass substrates. The process had a success rate of approximately 60%, meaning that 4 out of every 10 tubes produced had to be discarded due to manufacturing defects. ITT Corporation, based in Roanoke, Virginia, served as the primary contractor for image intensifier tube production. The company had begun developing night vision technology in 1958, initially focusing on infrared systems for tank and aircraft applications. By 1964, ITT engineers had successfully created the first generation of passive starlight amplification devices. William "Bill" Harrison, ITT's chief production engineer, supervised the manufacturing of over 2,000 image intensifier tubes between March and December 1967. Each tube required approximately 400 individual assembly steps, performed by highly trained technicians working under microscope guidance. We were building devices that were part electronic component, part optical instrument, and part precision machinery, Harrison recalled in a 1985 Technical Journal article. The tolerances were measured in microns. A speck of dust smaller than a human hair could render an entire tube inoperable. We developed manufacturing protocols that wouldn't look out of place in a semiconductor fabrication facility. The tubes themselves were marvels of miniaturization. Despite their critical importance to the overall system, each image intensifier measured only 25 mm in diameter and 40 mm in length. The internal components included the S-20 photocathode, electrostatic focusing electrodes, and a phosphor-coated output screen that converted electron impacts back into visible light. Quality control testing required each tube to demonstrate consistent performance across a range of light conditions, from bright starlight to the minimal illumination provided by a quarter moon. Tubes that passed initial testing were then subjected to environmental stress tests, including temperature cycling from -40 to +70 degrees Celsius, humidity exposure up to 95%, and vibration testing that simulated transportation and combat conditions. The first production scopes delivered to Vietnam in July 1967 represented the culmination of 18 months of intensive development and testing. The N/PVS-2 incorporated numerous improvements over earlier prototypes, including a more robust housing that could withstand combat conditions, improved battery efficiency that extended operational time to 8 hours, and enhanced optical coatings that reduced internal reflections. The scope specifications were impressive for 1967 technology. The 4x magnification provided by the optical system allowed soldiers to identify human targets at ranges up to 600 meters under optimal conditions. The 6.5-degree field of view was sufficient for scanning large areas while maintaining detail resolution necessary for target identification. Perhaps most importantly, the scope's passive operation made it virtually undetectable to enemy forces. Unlike infrared systems that required active illumination, the starlight scope emitted no electromagnetic radiation that could be intercepted or detected by opposing forces. American soldiers could observe enemy positions for hours without revealing their own locations. The tactical advantages provided by night vision technology quickly became apparent to North Vietnamese and Viet Cong commanders throughout South Vietnam. Intelligence reports captured during subsequent operations revealed that enemy forces had begun adjusting their operational patterns to account for American night vision capabilities. Colonel Nguyen Van Minh, a North Vietnamese Army regimental commander operating in Tay Ninh Province, issued tactical guidance to his subordinate units in August 1967 that specifically addressed American night vision capabilities. The document, captured during Operation Junction City, revealed the extent to which NVA forces understood the threat posed by starlight scopes. American forces now possess devices that allow them to see in darkness, the document stated. These devices appear to be mounted on rifles and allow precise shooting at night. Units must assume that all nighttime movements are observed by enemy forces. Recommend limiting night operations to periods of heavy cloud cover or during weather conditions that reduce visibility. The captured document represented a significant intelligence coup for American forces. It confirmed that enemy commanders recognized the tactical impact of night vision technology and were actively modifying their operations to counter American advantages. More importantly, it suggested that the psychological impact of night vision might be even greater than its immediate tactical benefits. Warrant Officer David "Eagle Eye" Thompson, an intelligence specialist with the 199th Light Infantry Brigade, analyzed captured documents and prisoner interrogation reports throughout the summer and fall of 1967. Thompson's reports documented a clear pattern of reduced enemy night activity in areas where American forces regularly employed starlight scopes. The enemy was adapting, but not quickly enough, Thompson noted in his classified monthly intelligence summary for September 1967. Captured documents showed they understood our capabilities but couldn't develop effective countermeasures fast enough to maintain their operational tempo. We were forcing them to fight on our terms, during daylight hours when our conventional advantages in firepower and air support were most effective. The psychological impact of night vision extended beyond tactical considerations. For decades, Vietnamese fighters had relied on darkness as their primary force multiplier, allowing small units to achieve effects far beyond their actual strength. The sudden loss of this advantage created uncertainty and doubt among enemy commanders who had built their entire tactical doctrine around night operations. Lieutenant Colonel Michael "Thunder" O'Brien, commanding officer of the 1st Battalion, 9th Infantry Regiment, observed this psychological transformation during Operation Coronado in the Mekong Delta. His battalion had received 8/PVS-2 scopes in late August 1967 and immediately began conducting night ambush operations against Viet Cong River traffic. The change in enemy behavior was immediate and dramatic, O'Brien reported in his monthly operational summary. Within 2 weeks of beginning night operations with the scopes, Viet Cong River movement in our area of operations decreased by approximately 70%. They were still moving supplies, but they were doing it during daylight when they were vulnerable to our air assets and artillery. The effectiveness of night vision in riverine operations proved particularly significant in the Mekong Delta, where Viet Cong forces had traditionally used the extensive waterway network for transportation and supply operations. The delta's complex geography, with thousands of small canals and tributaries, provided numerous hiding places that had previously been invisible to American forces operating at night. Petty Officer First Class Robert "River Rat" Martinez served as a boat commander with River Patrol Force, Task Force 116, operating heavily armed patrol boats equipped with /PVS-2 scopes. Martinez's boat, PBR, Patrol Boat River, 734, conducted night interdiction missions along the Song Ba Rai River system south of Can Tho. Before we got the scopes, night patrols were basically useless, Martinez explained in a 1968 Stars and Stripes interview. We'd cruise the rivers making noise, hoping to scare Charlie away from moving supplies. With the scopes, we could actually see the sampans, count the number of people aboard, identify weapons. We went from being a noisemaker to being a precision instrument. Martinez's patrol boat achieved remarkable success during 3 months of night operations with starlight scopes. Between September and November 1967, PBR-734 intercepted 23 enemy supply runs, captured over 4 tons of rice and medical supplies, and eliminated 18 Viet Cong fighters. The boat's success rate increased by over 300% compared to previous operations conducted without night vision capability. The river interdiction operations demonstrated another crucial advantage of night vision technology, its ability to provide detailed intelligence about enemy activities without immediately revealing American presence. Martinez's crew often observed enemy supply operations for hours before deciding whether to engage or simply report the intelligence to higher headquarters for potential airstrikes or artillery missions. This intelligence-gathering capability proved equally valuable in ground operations throughout South Vietnam. Infantry units equipped with starlight scopes could conduct reconnaissance missions that provided unprecedented detailed information about enemy positions, movements, and activities. The scopes allowed American forces to map enemy base camps, identify supply routes, and document patterns of behavior that had previously been invisible. Captain Sarah Nighthawk Foster, one of the few female intelligence officers serving in Vietnam, analyzed the tactical intelligence provided by starlight scope operations from her position at Military Assistance Command Vietnam, MACV, headquarters in Saigon. Foster's classified reports documented the scope's impact on American understanding of enemy operations throughout South Vietnam. The scopes didn't just allow us to see in the dark, Foster wrote in a December 1967 intelligence assessment. They allowed us to see into enemy thinking. We could observe how they positioned security elements, how they approached objectives, how they conducted resupply operations. For the first time, we were getting real-time observation of enemy tactics instead of reconstructing events from battle damage and prisoner interrogations. Foster's analysis revealed that night vision technology was providing American commanders with intelligence that would have required weeks or months to obtain through conventional reconnaissance methods. The ability to observe enemy forces for extended periods without detection allowed intelligence specialists to develop detailed profiles of unit capabilities, leadership patterns, and operational preferences. The intelligence value of night vision became particularly apparent during Operation Fairfax, a joint American-South Vietnamese operation conducted around Saigon from December 1966 through December 1967. The 199th Light Infantry Brigade, equipped with the latest /PVS-2 scopes, worked alongside elements of the 5th Army of the Republic of Vietnam, ARVN, Ranger Group to clear Viet Cong forces from Gia Dinh Province. Sergeant Major Frank Iron Eyes Sullivan supervised night vision operations for the 199th during Operation Fairfax. Sullivan, a career infantry soldier with 22 years of service, had witnessed the evolution of night fighting tactics from World War II through Korea and into Vietnam. His perspective on the starlight scope's impact carried the weight of extensive combat experience. In Korea, we fought blind at night, Sullivan recalled during a 1995 Veterans Administration oral history interview. The Chinese would hit us in the dark, and we'd fire at muzzle flashes and hope for the best. In Vietnam, with the scopes, we could see them coming from half a mile away. We could count them, identify their weapons, watch their approach routes. It was like having supernatural powers. Sullivan's night vision teams achieved remarkable success during Fairfax operations. Between January and June 1967, starlight scope-equipped units detected and disrupted 47 separate Viet Cong infiltration attempts around Saigon. The early warning provided by night vision allowed American and South Vietnamese forces to position blocking forces, coordinate artillery fires, and request air support before enemy units could reach their objectives. The tactical success of night vision technology did not go unnoticed by North Vietnamese military leadership. Captured documents from late 1967 revealed that NVA commanders were actively seeking to obtain American starlight scopes for reverse engineering and intelligence purposes. The Communist forces understood that developing countermeasures would require detailed knowledge of American night vision capabilities. Major General Tran Van Tra, Commanding General of Military Region 7 in South Vietnam, issued specific guidance to subordinate units regarding the capture of American night vision equipment. The directive, intercepted by U.S. Signals Intelligence in October 1967, offered substantial rewards for the capture of intact starlight scopes and their operators. American night vision devices represent a significant threat to our operational security, the directive stated. Units that successfully capture these devices intact will receive priority consideration for personnel awards and unit citations. Technical intelligence specialists will examine captured equipment to develop effective countermeasures. American forces took extraordinary precautions to prevent the capture of starlight scopes by enemy forces. Each scope was equipped with a thermite grenade mechanism that could be activated to destroy the device if capture appeared imminent. Operators received specific training in destruction procedures and were required to prioritize scope destruction over personal safety if surrounded by enemy forces. The security measures reflected the scope's strategic importance to American operations in Vietnam. Intelligence assessments suggested that a single captured scope could provide Communist forces with enough technical information to develop effective countermeasures or even reproduce the technology for their own use. Private First Class Jimmy Scope, Washington, an N/PVS-2 operator with Alpha Company, 4th Battalion, 12th Infantry, experienced the reality of these security requirements during a reconnaissance mission near the Cambodian border in November 1967. Washington's patrol was ambushed by a reinforced NVA squad that appeared to have specific intelligence about American night vision capabilities. "They knew we had the scope," Washington reported during his debrief at Cu Chi Base Camp. "The first shots targeted my position specifically, not just random fire at our patrol. Someone had told them exactly where the scope operator would be positioned. I had about 3 seconds to decide between saving my life or destroying the scope. I pulled the thermite pin and ran like hell." Washington's quick thinking prevented the capture of his N/PVS-2, but the incident revealed that North Vietnamese forces were developing specific tactics to target night vision equipment. Intelligence reports suggested that NVA units were being trained to identify the distinctive silhouette of soldiers carrying starlight scopes and to prioritize these targets during ambush operations. The Communist response to American night vision technology extended beyond tactical adjustments to include diplomatic and propaganda efforts. Radio Hanoi broadcasts in late 1967 began referring to starlight scopes as tools of American technological terror, and claimed that the devices violated international laws governing warfare. The propaganda campaign reflected the significant impact that night vision technology was having on Communist operations throughout South Vietnam. By denying enemy forces the traditional sanctuary of darkness, American forces had fundamentally altered the tactical balance that had sustained guerrilla operations since the beginning of the conflict. Dr. Elizabeth Tech Morrison, a civilian analyst with the Rand Corporation, conducted a comprehensive assessment of night vision technology's impact on Vietnam War operations in early 1968. Morrison's classified study, based on extensive interviews with military personnel and analysis of operational data, documented the scope's revolutionary effect on American tactical capabilities. The starlight scope represents more than just another piece of military equipment, Morrison concluded in her final report. It represents a fundamental shift in the nature of ground combat. For the first time in human history, individual soldiers possessed the ability to see clearly in complete darkness without revealing their position to enemy forces. This capability has implications that extend far beyond the immediate tactical situation in Vietnam. Morrison's analysis proved prophetic. The technology demonstrated in Vietnam would evolve into the sophisticated night vision systems that would dominate military operations for the next 5 decades. The basic principles of passive light amplification pioneered by the N/PVS-2 would be refined and improved through successive generations of image intensifier technology. The second-generation night vision devices developed in the 1970s incorporated microchannel plate technology that increased light amplification from 1,000 times to 20,000 times. These systems provided significantly improved image resolution and reduced the size and weight of individual components. Third-generation systems, introduced in the 1980s, used gallium arsenide photocathodes that further enhanced performance and extended operational life. But in 1967 Vietnam, the first-generation Starlight scopes represented the cutting edge of military technology. American soldiers operating these devices possessed capabilities that would have seemed like magic to previous generations of fighters. The scope's impact extended beyond immediate tactical advantages to include strategic implications that would influence military thinking for decades. The psychological effect of night vision on American soldiers proved as significant as its tactical benefits. For the first time since arriving in Vietnam, American forces felt they possessed a decisive technological advantage over their enemies. The confidence gained from being able to see in darkness translated into more aggressive tactics and improved morale throughout units equipped with Starlight scopes. Staff Sergeant Patricia "Eagle" Rodriguez, a communications specialist with the 1st Infantry Division, observed the morale impact of night vision during her 13-month tour in Vietnam. Rodriguez worked closely with units equipped with /PVS-2 scopes and documented their increased effectiveness in her unofficial diary, which was published in 1998 as part of a collection of women's Vietnam War experiences. Before the scopes arrived, night was something we endured, Rodriguez wrote in her diary entry for September 23, 1967. We'd hunker down after dark and wait for dawn, hoping Charlie wouldn't hit us while we were blind. With the scopes, night became hunting time. The guys with the scopes strutted around like they were invincible. Maybe they were. The confidence boost provided by night vision technology had measurable effects on unit performance. After-action reports from units equipped with Starlight scopes showed increased patrol frequency, longer mission durations, and more aggressive engagement of enemy forces. Soldiers who had previously avoided night operations began volunteering for missions that utilized night vision capabilities. The technological advantage provided by Starlight scopes also influenced American tactical doctrine in ways that would persist long after the Vietnam conflict ended. Military planners began developing new concepts of operations based on the assumption that American forces would possess superior night vision capabilities. The 24-hour battlefield, where operations continued around the clock, became the new standard for military planning. Colonel Gregory "Night Fighter" Adams, a tactical doctrine specialist at the U.S. Army Infantry School, began incorporating night vision tactics into standard infantry training in late 1967. Adams had served 2 tours in Vietnam and personally witnessed the transformation of night combat capabilities provided by Starlight scopes. "We had to completely rewrite our tactical manuals," Adams explained during a 1975 lecture at the Army War College. "Everything we thought we knew about night operations was suddenly obsolete. The scope didn't just improve our existing capabilities, it created entirely new possibilities for how ground forces could be employed." The doctrinal changes initiated by Adams would eventually influence military operations far beyond the Vietnam conflict. The concept of continuous operations, enabled by superior night vision capabilities, became a cornerstone of American military strategy. Future conflicts in Grenada, Panama, the Persian Gulf, and Afghanistan would all demonstrate the tactical advantages gained from American investment in night vision technology. The manufacturing challenges associated with producing sufficient quantities of Starlight scopes revealed the complex industrial base required to support advanced military technology. The specialized components required for image intensifier tubes could only be produced by a handful of companies with the necessary technical expertise and security clearances. Wollensak Optical Company's role as the primary contractor for Starlight scope production required the company to rapidly expand its manufacturing capabilities and workforce. Between January and December 1967, Wollensak hired over 300 new employees and constructed 2 additional production facilities dedicated exclusively to military night vision contracts. The company's transformation from a manufacturer of civilian optical equipment to a defense contractor illustrated the broader changes occurring throughout American industry during the Vietnam War. Companies across the United States were adapting their production capabilities to support military requirements, often investing in technologies and processes that would have commercial applications in the post-war economy. Mary Precision O'Sullivan worked as a quality control inspector at Wollensack's Rochester facility during the peak production period for N/PVS-2 scopes. O'Sullivan's job required her to examine each completed scope using specialized test equipment that simulated combat lighting conditions. Her work was critical to ensuring that scopes delivered to Vietnam would perform reliably under actual combat conditions. Every scope that left our facility had been through dozens of individual tests, O'Sullivan recalled during a 1985 interview with Rochester Business Magazine. We tested the optics, the electronics, the mechanical components, even the paint finish. We knew that American soldiers would be depending on our work to keep them alive, so failure was not an option. O'Sullivan's quality control procedures included testing each scope under simulated combat conditions, including temperature extremes, humidity exposure, vibration stress, and electromagnetic interference. Scopes that failed any portion of the testing protocol were disassembled and their components recycled into other units or discarded if damaged. The rigorous quality control standards implemented by Wollensack resulted in field reliability rates exceeding 90% for N/PVS-2 scopes delivered to Vietnam. This reliability rate was remarkable considering the complexity of the technology and the harsh environmental conditions in Southeast Asia. The success of American night vision technology in Vietnam did not go unnoticed by Allied military forces around the world. By early 1968, requests for Starlight scope technology were being received from military organizations throughout NATO and other Allied nations. The demand for night vision equipment would drive continued development and production long after the Vietnam conflict ended. The technological foundation established during the Vietnam War would support decades of continued innovation in night vision systems. American companies like ITT Corporation, Hughes Aircraft, and Vero Incorporated would become world leaders in electro-optical technology, largely based on expertise gained from producing equipment for Vietnam operations. The international market for night vision technology would eventually become worth billions of dollars annually, with American companies maintaining dominant positions based on their early investment in Vietnam War-era development programs. The competitive advantage gained through combat experience in Southeast Asia would prove difficult for foreign competitors to overcome. But in 1967, the focus remained on immediate tactical requirements in Vietnam. American forces needed reliable night vision equipment that could function in tropical conditions while providing decisive advantages over enemy forces. The N/PVS-2 Starlight scope, despite its limitations, represented a revolutionary capability that transformed the nature of ground combat. The scope's impact on individual soldiers went beyond its tactical benefits. For many Americans serving in Vietnam, the Starlight scope represented tangible evidence that American technological superiority could provide meaningful advantages in a conflict that often seemed to favor the enemy. The psychological comfort of possessing superior equipment helped offset the stress and uncertainty of fighting in an unfamiliar environment. Corporal James Tech Wilson, a forward observer with the 25th Infantry Division, relied on his N/PVS-2 scope during 12 months of combat operations in the Iron Triangle region northwest of Saigon. Wilson's job required him to identify targets for artillery and air strikes, work that was nearly impossible to perform accurately during nighttime operations before the introduction of night vision technology. The scope was like having a superpower, Wilson wrote in a letter to his brother dated January 15, 1968. I could call in artillery missions at night with the same accuracy I had during daylight. For the first time since I got to Vietnam, I felt like we had an advantage over the enemy. They couldn't hide from us anymore. Wilson's artillery forward observer team achieved remarkable success during night operations with Starlight scope support. Between October 1967 and March 1968, Wilson's team directed over 200 artillery missions based on targets identified through night vision surveillance. The accuracy of these missions, confirmed through subsequent daylight reconnaissance, exceeded 85% direct hits on intended targets. The effectiveness of night vision-directed artillery fires represented another tactical innovation enabled by Starlight scope technology. Traditional night artillery missions had been largely area fires directed at suspected enemy locations based on limited intelligence. With night vision surveillance, artillery could be directed at specific, confirmed targets with precision approaching that of daylight operations. The integration of night vision technology with existing weapon systems created new tactical possibilities that American commanders were quick to exploit. Infantry units equipped with starlight scopes could provide precise target information to artillery, naval gunfire, and air support assets, multiplying the effectiveness of American firepower advantages. The technological superiority demonstrated by American night vision systems in Vietnam also influenced enemy procurement and development efforts. Intelligence reports from the early 1970s revealed that both the Soviet Union and China had initiated crash programs to develop equivalent night vision capabilities for their own military forces. The competition in night vision technology would become another front in the broader Cold War technological rivalry between East and West. American advantages in electro-optical systems, established during the Vietnam conflict, would persist for decades and influence military balances throughout the world. Dr. Richard Optics Chen, a Chinese-American physicist who defected to the United States in 1971, provided valuable intelligence about communist efforts to reverse-engineer American night vision technology. Chen had worked on optical systems for the Chinese military and possessed detailed knowledge of their attempts to duplicate starlight scope capabilities. The Chinese and Soviets understood the strategic importance of night vision technology, Chen reported during extensive debriefings with American intelligence specialists. They assigned their best scientists and engineers to night vision projects and provided unlimited funding for research and development. However, they lacked access to certain critical materials and manufacturing processes that limited their progress. Chen's intelligence revealed that communist forces had obtained examples of American night vision equipment through various means, including battlefield recovery and espionage operations. However, their efforts to reproduce the technology were hampered by limitations in their industrial base and access to specialized materials required for image intensifier tube production. The technological gap in night vision systems would persist throughout the Cold War period, providing American and Allied forces with sustained advantages in military operations around the world. The foundation established during Vietnam War development programs would support continued American leadership in electro-optical technology for the next 5 decades. The economic impact of night vision technology development extended far beyond immediate military applications. The industrial processes developed for producing image intensifier tubes would find applications in civilian technologies including medical imaging, scientific instrumentation, and consumer electronics. The miniaturization techniques required for starlight scope components contributed to advances in semiconductor manufacturing that would support the development of the computer industry. The precision optical manufacturing capabilities developed by companies like Wollensak would support growth in telecommunications, aerospace, and other high-technology industries. The network of suppliers and subcontractors assembled to support night vision production created a high-technology industrial cluster in Rochester, New York, that would attract additional defense and technology companies in subsequent decades. The economic impact of these developments would support thousands of jobs and contribute billions of dollars to the regional economy. The human cost of developing and deploying night vision technology included the risks faced by American soldiers who operated these first-generation systems under combat conditions. The N/PVS-2 scope's limitations and vulnerabilities created operational challenges that sometimes put users at increased risk. The scope's distinctive silhouette made operators easily identifiable to enemy forces, leading to targeted attacks specifically designed to eliminate American night vision capabilities. The device's weight and bulk reduced soldier mobility and made rapid movement more difficult in contact situations. Technical failures of early-generation night vision equipment occasionally left operators temporarily blinded when image intensifier tubes failed suddenly or were damaged by bright light exposure. These failures could create life-threatening situations for soldiers who had become dependent on artificial night vision capabilities. Staff Sergeant Carlos "Night Eyes" Mendez experienced these risks firsthand during a reconnaissance patrol near Dak 2 in November 1967. Mendez's N/PVS-2 scope suffered a catastrophic tube failure when exposed to illumination from a North Vietnamese flare during a firefight. The sudden loss of night vision left Mendez effectively blind in the middle of a combat engagement. "1 second I could see everything clearly," the next second I was completely blind, Mendez reported during his medical evacuation debriefing. The scope made a popping sound and died completely. I had to fight the rest of the engagement using muzzle flashes and sound to locate targets. It was terrifying. Mendez's experience highlighted the need for backup systems and training procedures that would allow soldiers to continue fighting effectively if their night vision equipment failed. Military trainers began developing night combat techniques that combined artificial night vision with traditional low-light fighting skills. The medical effects of prolonged night vision use also became apparent as more soldiers accumulated extended exposure to image intensifier technology. Some operators reported eye strain, headaches, and temporary vision problems after extended periods using N/PVS-2 scopes. Army medical specialists conducted studies to determine whether night vision equipment use caused permanent vision damage or other health effects. The studies, conducted at Walter Reed Army Medical Center, involved examinations of soldiers who had used night vision equipment extensively during Vietnam deployments. Dr. Margaret Vision Foster, an ophthalmologist with the Army Medical Research Command, led the comprehensive study of night vision health effects. Foster's research, conducted between 1968 and 1970, examined over 500 soldiers who had used starlight scopes during Vietnam service. We found no evidence of permanent vision damage from night vision use, Foster concluded in her classified research report. However, we did identify several operational factors that could contribute to eye strain and fatigue. Extended use periods without rest breaks, improper adjustment of optical systems, and exposure to bright light sources while using the equipment all contributed to temporary vision problems. Foster's recommendations led to changes in operational procedures for night vision equipment use, including mandatory rest periods, improved training on proper optical adjustment, and enhanced protection against bright light damage to image intensifier tubes. The intelligence value of night vision technology extended beyond immediate tactical applications to support strategic intelligence collection efforts throughout Southeast Asia. American forces used starlight scopes to conduct surveillance of enemy supply routes, base camps, and staging areas that provided valuable information about communist military capabilities and intentions. The Ho Chi Minh Trail, the complex network of supply routes that supported communist forces throughout South Vietnam, became a primary target for night vision surveillance operations. American forces used N/PVS-2 scopes to monitor trail activity and document the flow of personnel and supplies from North Vietnam. Major Thomas, Trail Watcher, Jackson commanded a specialized surveillance unit that conducted long-range reconnaissance missions along the Ho Chi Minh Trail using night vision equipment. Jackson's team, officially designated Long-Range Reconnaissance Patrol, LRRP, Team 7, spent weeks at a time in remote areas conducting surveillance operations. The trail was like a highway system in the jungle, Jackson reported in his classified mission summary for December 1967. With the scopes, we could sit on a ridgeline and watch truck convoys, bicycle units, and foot patrols moving supplies south. We documented convoy sizes, vehicle types, cargo loads, and movement patterns that provided valuable intelligence about enemy logistics capabilities. Jackson's surveillance data contributed to American understanding of communist supply operations and helped target B-52 bombing missions against key trail segments. The intelligence provided by night vision surveillance operations was considered so valuable that additional LRRP teams were equipped with starlight scopes and deployed throughout the trail system. The strategic intelligence provided by night vision surveillance operations influenced American policy decisions about bombing campaigns, troop deployments, and diplomatic initiatives. The detailed knowledge of communist logistics capabilities helped American commanders develop more effective strategies for interdicting enemy supply lines. The technological lessons learned from Vietnam night vision operations would influence military procurement and development programs for decades. The importance of reliability, maintainability, and user training became fundamental principles for future military technology programs. The Vietnam experience demonstrated that advanced technology alone was insufficient to guarantee military success. Technology had to be integrated with appropriate tactics, training, and support systems to achieve maximum effectiveness. These lessons would guide American military technology development through subsequent conflicts. The industrial base established to support Vietnam night vision requirements would evolve to support continued innovation in electro-optical systems. American companies that gained experience producing equipment for Vietnam would become leaders in night vision technology for international markets. The competitive advantages gained through Vietnam combat experience would prove difficult for foreign competitors to overcome. American night vision systems would remain the international standard for military and law enforcement applications for the next 5 decades. The human dimension of night vision technology included the training and adaptation required for soldiers to effectively employ these new capabilities. Operating in /PVS-2 scopes required skills and techniques that were not part of traditional military training programs. Training facilities at Fort Benning, Georgia, and Fort Bragg, North Carolina, developed specialized programs to prepare soldiers for night vision operations in Vietnam. The training programs included technical instruction on equipment operation and maintenance, tactical procedures for night combat operations, and field exercises that simulated Vietnam conditions. Sergeant First Class Robert, Instructor, Williams supervised night vision training at the U.S. Army Infantry School throughout 1967 and 1968. Williams had completed 2 tours in Vietnam and possessed extensive experience with starlight scope operations under combat conditions. Teaching soldiers to use night vision was like teaching them to see all over again, Williams explained during a 1970 interview with Army Training magazine. The scopes showed them things they'd never seen before, but they had to learn new ways of moving, aiming, and fighting. It wasn't enough to just look through the scope, you had to think differently about how night operations worked. Williams' training programs emphasized the importance of patience and observation skills for effective night vision operations. Students learned to scan methodically rather than rapidly, to distinguish between natural and artificial movement, and to coordinate with team members who did not have night vision capabilities. The training also addressed the psychological challenges associated with night vision use. Some soldiers experienced disorientation or motion sickness when first using image intensifier technology. Others became overly dependent on artificial night vision and lost proficiency in traditional low-light combat techniques. The comprehensive training programs developed for Vietnam night vision operations would become the foundation for military night vision training for the next several decades. The lessons learned about human factors, technical training, and tactical integration would influence training programs throughout the U.S. military. The logistical challenges of supporting night vision operations in Vietnam revealed the complex supply chains required for advanced military technology. And /PVS-2 scopes required specialized batteries, replacement parts, and maintenance equipment that had to be transported and distributed throughout Southeast Asia. The tropical climate and harsh conditions in Vietnam created maintenance challenges that had not been anticipated during laboratory testing of night vision equipment. High humidity caused corrosion of electronic components, while dust and debris infiltrated optical systems and reduced performance. Technical Sergeant Michael Fix-It Murphy supervised night vision maintenance operations for the 173rd Airborne Brigade throughout 1967 and 1968. Murphy's maintenance team was responsible for keeping 42 and /PVS-2 scopes operational under field conditions. We were learning maintenance procedures as we went, Murphy recalled during a 1985 Veterans Reunion interview. The technical manuals were written based on laboratory conditions, not jungle warfare. We had to develop new techniques for cleaning optical components, protecting electronic circuits, and preventing moisture damage. Murphy's team achieved a maintenance availability rate of 87% for their assigned night vision equipment, significantly higher than the Army standard of 75% for complex electronic systems. Their success was attributed to preventive maintenance programs and innovative field repair techniques developed through trial and error. The maintenance experience gained in Vietnam would influence design requirements for future generations of night vision equipment. Reliability, maintainability, and environmental resistance became primary considerations for military electronic systems development. The cost of night vision technology represented a significant investment for the U.S. military during the Vietnam War period. Each N/PVS-2 scope cost approximately $8,000 in 1967 prices, equivalent to over $60,000 in current purchasing power. The high cost of individual scopes limited the number that could be procured and deployed to Vietnam. Military planners had to carefully prioritize distribution of night vision equipment to units and missions where it would provide maximum tactical advantage. Budget constraints also influenced decisions about training, maintenance, and logistical support for night vision operations. The Army had to balance the cost of procuring additional scopes against the expense of training operators and maintaining equipment under field conditions. Major General William Budget Thompson, Director of Army Procurement during the Vietnam buildup, managed the complex process of funding and acquiring night vision equipment for combat operations. Thompson's office coordinated with Congress, the Department of Defense, and military contractors to ensure adequate resources were available for priority programs. Night vision was one of our highest priority procurement programs, Thompson explained during congressional testimony in March 1968. We understood that this technology could save American lives and provide decisive tactical advantages. However, we also had to balance night vision requirements against other critical needs including ammunition, vehicles, communications equipment, and medical supplies. Thompson's procurement strategy emphasized rapid deployment of available night vision equipment to maximize combat effectiveness while continuing development of improved systems for future operations. This approach resulted in evolutionary improvements to N/PVS-2 systems throughout the Vietnam deployment period. The financial investment in night vision technology during Vietnam would pay dividends far beyond the immediate conflict. The industrial base and technical expertise developed through Vietnam programs would support American leadership in night vision technology for decades. The international market for night vision equipment, largely dominated by American companies, would generate billions of dollars in exports and support hundreds of thousands of jobs in high-technology industries. The strategic implications of night vision technology extended beyond immediate tactical applications to influence broader military strategy and doctrine. The ability to conduct effective operations during darkness fundamentally changed how military planners thought about campaign design and resource allocation. The 24-hour battlefield concept, enabled by superior night vision capabilities, became a cornerstone of American military strategy. Future conflicts would be planned on the assumption that American forces could maintain operational tempo around the clock while enemy forces were limited to daylight operations. General William Night Hawk Davidson, commanding general of 2 Field Force Vietnam, incorporated night vision capabilities into his overall strategy for operations in 3 core tactical zones. Davidson's approach emphasized continuous pressure on enemy forces through coordinated day and night operations. Night vision gave us the ability to fight a 24-hour war, Davidson explained during his change of command ceremony in July 1968. We could maintain contact with enemy forces around the clock, denying them the rest and resupply time they needed to sustain operations. This continuous pressure forced them to make mistakes and accept engagements under conditions that favored our technological advantages. Davidson's tactical approach would influence American military strategy for decades. The concept of maintaining continuous operational pressure through superior night capabilities became standard doctrine for conventional military operations. The strategic advantages provided by night vision technology also influenced American diplomatic and political strategy during the Vietnam conflict. The demonstration of advanced military capabilities helped maintain Allied support and deterred potential intervention by Communist allies. The technological superiority represented by systems like the Starlight scope provided evidence of American innovation and industrial capacity that had implications far beyond immediate military applications. Allied nations sought access to American night vision technology, creating opportunities for military cooperation and arms sales. The diplomatic value of advanced military technology would become an important element of American foreign policy. The ability to provide allies with advanced capabilities like night vision equipment created strategic partnerships and influenced international relationships. The cultural impact of night vision technology extended beyond military applications to influence popular perceptions of warfare and technology. The Starlight scope represented the kind of advanced capability that captured public imagination and reinforced beliefs about American technological superiority. Media coverage of night vision operations in Vietnam introduced the American public to concepts of electronic warfare and advanced military technology that would become increasingly important in subsequent decades. The scope's ability to see in the dark seemed almost magical to civilian audiences unfamiliar with image intensifier technology. The positive media coverage of American technological achievements in Vietnam helped maintain public support for military research and development programs. The success of systems like the Starlight scope demonstrated the value of investing in advanced military technology. War correspondent David "Night Rider" Palmer covered night vision operations with the 1st Cavalry Division throughout late 1967 and early 1968. Palmer's dispatches for Time magazine provided American audiences with detailed descriptions of how night vision technology was transforming combat operations. To watch American soldiers using these scopes is to witness the future of warfare, Palmer wrote in his November 27, 1967, Time article. They move through darkness with confidence and precision that would have been impossible for any previous generation of fighters. The enemy, accustomed to using darkness as camouflage and protection, suddenly finds himself exposed and vulnerable. Palmer's reporting helped establish public understanding of night vision technology and its tactical significance. His articles contributed to broader awareness of American technological capabilities and their role in military operations. The technical evolution of night vision systems continued throughout the Vietnam conflict as engineers addressed operational limitations identified through combat experience. Second-generation prototypes began arriving in Vietnam in early 1968, incorporating improved image intensifier tubes with better resolution and reliability. The rapid pace of technological development meant that soldiers in Vietnam were essentially participating in field testing of experimental equipment. Their feedback and operational experience directly influenced design improvements and development priorities for future systems. The collaboration between combat soldiers and civilian engineers represented an effective model for military technology development that would be replicated in subsequent programs. The integration of user feedback with technical innovation accelerated the pace of improvement and ensured that new capabilities met actual operational requirements. The lessons learned from Vietnam night vision operations influenced American military technology development philosophy for decades. The importance of user involvement, field testing, and iterative improvement became fundamental principles for acquisition programs. The success of night vision technology in Vietnam also validated the concept of leveraging American technological advantages to offset enemy strengths in manpower, terrain familiarity, and unconventional tactics. This approach would guide American military strategy through the Cold War period and beyond. The industrial partnerships established during Vietnam night vision development created lasting relationships between military organizations and technology companies. These partnerships would support continued innovation in electro-optical systems and maintain American competitive advantages in international markets. The technical workforce trained on night vision systems during the Vietnam period would provide the foundation for decades of continued development in electro-optical technology. Their expertise would support American leadership in night vision, thermal imaging, and related technologies. The educational institutions that supported night vision research during Vietnam would continue to advance the fundamental science and engineering principles underlying electro-optical systems. Universities and research laboratories would build on Vietnam-era foundations to develop increasingly sophisticated technologies. The intellectual property created during Vietnam night vision development would support American technology companies for decades. Patents and technical knowledge developed during this period would provide competitive advantages in commercial and military markets around the world. The international recognition of American night vision capabilities established during Vietnam would influence military procurement decisions by allied nations for decades. The combat-proven effectiveness of American systems would make them the preferred choice for military organizations worldwide. The standardization of night vision technology around American technical specifications would create network effects that reinforced American market leadership. Once Allied militaries adopted American-compatible systems, they would continue purchasing American equipment and training services. The strategic relationships established through night vision technology transfers would support broader American foreign policy objectives. Military technology cooperation would create lasting partnerships that extended beyond immediate equipment sales to include training, maintenance, and upgrade programs. The economic benefits of night vision technology leadership would extend throughout American high-technology industries. The advanced manufacturing capabilities developed for military applications would support civilian technology development in telecommunications, computing, and consumer electronics. The research and development capabilities established during Vietnam would support American innovation in next-generation technologies including thermal imaging, laser systems, and digital electro-optical systems. The foundation created during the Vietnam period would enable continued American technological leadership. The human capital developed through Vietnam night vision programs would provide leadership for American technology companies and military organizations for decades. The engineers, technicians, and military personnel who gained experience with first-generation systems would guide development of increasingly sophisticated capabilities. The institutional knowledge created during Vietnam operations would influence military training, doctrine, and operational procedures long after the conflict ended. The lessons learned about night vision employment would be incorporated into military educational programs and operational manuals. The success of American night vision technology in Vietnam would inspire continued investment in advanced military systems. The demonstration that technology could provide decisive tactical advantages would support funding for research and development programs throughout the Cold War period. The strategic vision that guided night vision development during Vietnam would influence American military technology strategy for decades. The concept of leveraging technological superiority to achieve military objectives would become a cornerstone of American defense planning. The tactical innovations developed through night vision employment in Vietnam would influence military operations around the world. The techniques and procedures pioneered by American forces would be adopted by Allied militaries and studied by potential adversaries. The organizational changes required to effectively employ night vision technology would influence military structure and training programs. The specialized skills required for advanced technology employment would drive changes in military education and personnel management. The logistical systems developed to support night vision operations would provide models for sustaining advanced military technology in remote environments. The maintenance, supply, and training procedures developed during Vietnam would influence military logistics for decades. The measurement and evaluation techniques developed to assess night vision effectiveness would influence military testing and evaluation procedures. The methods used to quantify technological advantages would be applied to future system development programs. The cost-benefit analysis methodologies developed for night vision procurement would influence military acquisition procedures. The techniques used to justify investments in advanced technology would be refined and applied to subsequent programs. The risk management approaches developed for protecting night vision technology would influence military security procedures. The methods used to prevent technology transfer to adversaries would be applied to other sensitive capabilities. The international cooperation mechanisms established for night vision technology sharing would provide models for future military technology partnerships. The procedures for managing technology transfer while maintaining competitive advantages would influence American foreign military sales programs. The industrial base management techniques developed during night vision production would influence defense manufacturing policy. The methods used to rapidly expand production capabilities while maintaining quality standards would be applied to other critical technologies. The workforce development programs established for night vision manufacturing would provide models for training technical personnel in advanced industries. The educational partnerships between military organizations, industry, and universities would continue to support American technological leadership. The quality control procedures developed for night vision systems would influence manufacturing standards throughout high-technology industries. The testing and validation methods used to ensure combat reliability would be adopted by civilian technology companies. The technology transfer mechanisms established during night vision development would support broader American innovation objectives. The methods used to move technology from military to civilian applications would accelerate commercialization of advanced capabilities. The strategic communication techniques developed to explain night vision capabilities would influence public understanding of military technology. The methods used to build support for defense research and development would be refined and applied to future programs. The Vietnam night vision experience would ultimately demonstrate that American technological innovation, properly applied and supported, could provide decisive advantages in military conflict. The lessons learned would guide American military technology development for the next 5 decades, establishing foundations for continued leadership in electro-optical systems and related technologies. The soldiers who operated the first starlight scopes in Vietnam had participated in a technological revolution that would transform the nature of warfare itself. Their courage in employing experimental equipment under combat conditions, their feedback on system performance, and their development of employment techniques had contributed to American technological superiority that would persist long after their service ended. The night no longer belonged to the enemy. Through American innovation, determination, and sacrifice, darkness had become just another tactical advantage in the arsenal of freedom. The green glow of the starlight scope would illuminate the path to victory in Vietnam and establish the foundation for American military technological dominance in conflicts yet to come. In the humid jungles and rice paddies of South Vietnam, American soldiers had proven that technology, properly developed and employed, could overcome traditional military disadvantages. The starlight scope had given them the ability to see their enemies in conditions where visibility had previously been impossible. More importantly, it had given them the confidence to take the fight to an adversary who had previously enjoyed the sanctuary of darkness. The tactical revolution begun with the N/PVS-2 starlight scope would continue for decades, driven by the lessons learned in Vietnam and the industrial base established to support those early night vision operations. American forces would never again fight blind in the darkness, and their enemies would never again enjoy the advantage of invisibility. The green-tinted image provided by those first-generation night vision systems had revealed more than enemy positions and movements. It had shown the future of warfare itself, where technological superiority would provide decisive advantages to forces capable of developing, producing, and employing advanced capabilities. The Americans had seen that future first, and they would not relinquish the advantages it provided. From the humid patrol bases of Vietnam to the global battlefields of future conflicts, the legacy of the starlight scope would endure. American soldiers would continue to own the night, and their enemies would continue to fear the green glow that revealed their presence to forces that had learned to see in darkness itself. The revolution that began in the workshops of Rochester, New York, and the jungles of South Vietnam would transform not just military operations, but the entire relationship between technology and warfare. The starlight scope had proven that American innovation could provide decisive advantages in military conflict, establishing a precedent that would guide defense technology development for generations to come. In 1967 Vietnam, American forces had stunned their enemies with capabilities that seemed almost supernatural. The ability to see in complete darkness represented more than just another piece of equipment, it represented the power of American technological innovation to overcome traditional military challenges and provide decisive advantages to forces willing to embrace new capabilities. The enemy had been stunned by America's night vision technology, and they would never recover from the tactical disadvantage created by that technological revolution. The darkness that had once protected them now exposed them to forces that had learned to see beyond the limits of human vision. The night would never again belong to America's enemies, and the green glow of the starlight scope would remain a symbol of American technological superiority for decades to come.